This is Dr. Mariah White, host of Your Life Matters. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Joining the Confessions of a Military Spouse podcast. I am your host, Jenna. I'm a military spouse of 10 years, a mom, a registered and certified dental assistant, and a certified phlebotomist. Again, I just want to say thank you for taking me with you wherever you are and being here with me today. And if you find that anything in today's episode resonates with you, or if you know someone else who might be interested in hearing this episode, please share it. As always, I appreciate any and all feedback, so if you would like to leave me some feedback, please feel free to email me at confessionsofamilspouse@gmail.com, or you can find me on Facebook and Instagram at confessionsofamilspouse or at publichousemedia.org. So today we are going to be doing the second round or square table discussion.
Rectangle today.
Yeah, today is rectangle.
Round two. Fight!
We're just switching it up. But today we are going to be doing roundtable discussion again, and we have 5 more questions with a 10-minute maximum. Yes, 5. You're correct. 5. And let's go ahead and get started. Question number 1. Ooh, this is a good one. Reintegration from TAD trainings or deployment. And go. This is probably going to take up all 10 minutes.
All eyes turn to Dustin.
No. Why me?
Dustin, you talked about it a little bit in the last episode.
Yeah,
too.
you did talk about it.
I did. It was a great intro into another one, but we didn't pull that one out. So
I'm pulling on that string now.
Yep,
here we are now.
Now. It hurts. It tugs. Tugs at him. It's rough. It's hard. Like, no matter what you do, everything is just a check in the box that we do when we come back.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Like, hey, you got to go see the chaplain to talk to the chaplain before you come home, and then we can all come home. Like, okay. Like, talk to the chaplain. Hey, don't beat your kids, don't beat your wife, and that's about it.
Is that really what they tell you?
There's a lot of that stuff. It's more in depth, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to completely neglect it, but it's very broad strokes of like, hey, don't do this, don't do that. But like, that's it. I'm not saying we should get some like crazy awesome training, but at the same time, like, it's some like annual training type classes where like I just got to sit here to get a check in the box to get it done, so my boss doesn't get in trouble, like kind of thing. Like, yep, they did do the reintegration training, all this, blah 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 blah.
But it's not really. So what you're saying is that it's not really like a actual reintegration training. It's not telling you real life stuff that's likely to happen.
No, but I will say, like, deployments from OIF, the height of OIF has definitely changed from now. Whereas before, like, hey, we'd come back and like, hey, you can't drive in the middle of the road and be on the lookout for trash, that kind of stuff. Now it's a lot more like family orientated. Like, don't beat your kids, don't beat your wife. That's a real thing. And like, just trying to communicate when you get back of like, hey, you get back and like, it's just like, boom, I messed up my family schedule that they've been gone since I've been gone for the last year or 9 months or 6 months. Like, You guys have been doing just fine. Now I'm throwing like a grenade in there and like, hey, I'm back.
So they do more of like a physical integration thing instead of like an emotional or...
Yeah, that's part of it. It's supposed to be part of it. It's like you said, a check in the box. It's the post-deployment physical health assessment.
Did you ever have any of those?
No, I've not personally, but I've been around folks who have.
Yeah, it's like an hour-long class, and that's it, if that.
I mean, I've done a whole podcast episode about reintegration and how difficult it is.
So, I mean, what can we do better? And like, from your experience, what could we do better?
And that's a hard point because half the people don't take it serious.
Yeah,
right. Well,
and that's definitely something that we've talked about is like, what can the military do better for not only the active service members, but for spouses too?
Spouses come and do something like that too. Like, this is what your service member may or may not have gone through.
Yeah.
Think about how you're phrasing stuff. And because I can just see, well, from how many times Eric's gone TAD, long ones, short ones, several like sporadic ones. I come up with a routine, and then like, bam, like, oh, you're back. Okay, well, let's change the routine, and then it would just be a point of contention between us that I could just. If I had coaching of you know, knowing a little bit more about just that change, especially when our first duty station, he was gone so frequently. It was like, okay, well, this is fun.
Well, and I think the thing that nobody really talks about is how difficult it is to communicate with your spouse when they come back.
Right.
Like, you're communicating with them while they're gone, but sometimes you're 12 plus hours away from them. And so your communication is, hey, how's your day? It's great. Like, you're just there for the important things. And then whenever they come home, like, it's real life now. Like, they're there.
You're sharing a bathroom again?
Yeah, all the time. I mean, quote unquote, all the time, because we know as soon as they get home, they have to go back to work. And that's the other thing that really bothers me is a lot of times when they come home from deployments, they are forced right back into work. They don't get time, ample time, in my opinion, to reintegrate with their family. Because like you said, you get a routine as a spouse when they're gone because you have no other choice. And then they come home and now all of a sudden you've got this other person that is now a factor in your routine. And they're home for like a couple days and then they're back to work full time. And then you have to readjust everything again. And
it's a tough nut to crack because it doesn't matter like, oh, they can come home and not see their spouses for a week and then do slow things like that. Like there's no easy way to go about like trying to make it better. Like it's not great, but how can we make it better? Like I honestly don't know because like half people don't take it serious. Like, I mean, do we make it an inspectable item and then people start taking it serious? I don't know. Like I really don't because it seems like that's where people start taking things seriously is when people start getting inspected on.
There's accountability.
Yeah.
And it seems like it's also not going to be one of those things where you figure it out the first time and then the second time a deployment or anything like that happens again, especially with kids. Your kids are at a different age. They could be in extracurricular activities. So what worked before is definitely not going to work now.
I think it's worth saying also, a lot of people don't take it seriously because they feel like they don't want to be a burden. And so I'm involved in this tangentially, not directly, obviously. But buddy of mine deployed to Afghanistan for 12 months with 1 month R&R in the middle of it. And he drove as part of a partner-mentor team and came back with severe PTSD with only seeing combat action once. And it wasn't because of the combat action that the problem was. It was the general existential problems that he had. Like, any day could be the day type thing. And he doesn't deal with the stress the way he should be or see a counselor about it or anything like that because he's like, no, man, I wasn't in crazy combat operations, you know? And so a lot of that falls on us to be like, okay, this applies to me. You know, don't beat your kids, don't beat your wife applies to me, you know?
Yeah.
But no, man, I just want to get back and play some Xbox, you know? Like, that's the focus here. I just want to get back.
A big thing is the communication is like you come back, like you try to talk to your spouse, they may not understand or get it, and you just get frustrated and you're just like, yep, I'm just not going to talk about it.
Because you're so used to talking to people who understand it where we don't. We're completely naive to it all.
Yeah, you're with like-minded people when you're gone, and you talk to them. When you come back, you don't talk to them as much. Yeah. Now you're with your spouse or your kids or your friends, and like some of them just don't understand. It's hard to relate that. Like, how can I effectively communicate this to them to understand that? And sometimes they just don't understand it, and they may never not understand it. But at the same time, it's like I got to find common ground so that we can try to speak a little bit, so you can understand kind of like what we're going through and like where we're going because. And maybe I come home and I just don't do the dishes after she cooked, you know, like whatever system you have, like whatever you're doing before and you just don't do it, like it may be something that sets it off. Like you just never know.
I think another thing that I just want to get out to everyone, I don't know if I've said yet, is that like it's okay to not be okay. And that's something that I've had to come to terms with here through stress. And like, we have to be okay not being okay. But until we say that to each other and give permission to each other, like... Nothing can happen, and that leads to a lot of these big reintegration problems.
Like your worst is your worst. You don't have to compare your worst to somebody else's. Absolutely. Because who knows what kind of life that they've led? Who knows what their background is? I mean, what you could think is their worst may not actually be their worst. It's all superficial at that point.
And the problem is they're at their breaking point. We got to work forward from here, not comparatively.
Yeah. One of the things that I know Dustin and I struggled with too is. I'm very much an extroverted person, and he is not so much. So while he was gone, in order for me to keep my mind off of it and Ella's mind off of it, we spent a lot of time at friends' houses. Mm-hmm. I mean, almost every day. And so when he came home, he's like, I don't want to go anywhere. I don't want to do anything. I don't want to see anybody. And I'm like, but wait,
here we come, knocking on the door, like, but why does this have to change for us?
Right? But I'm like, for the last 9 months or however long it's been, like, I've been living this basically other life. And now all of a sudden I have to change it. Like, it can cause some resentment and some friction and frustration because it's like, okay, I've built this. For the last 9 months, these people for the last however long have been my support system, and now I understand you're back, and like that's not your thing, but this is my thing, and this is what I have nurtured and grown and made come to life basically while you were gone, and now I feel like you just want to take that all away because you don't want to go and do anything.
The social battery is real. I gotta say.
It is.
And part of it is like, I don't know, I get in front of 60 people every day and give my soul and life and everything because that's what the Marine Corps demands. And like, it is so hard to recharge that. You know, fortunately, we're able to find friends that we can be comfortable around. No matter the circumstances, you know. Yeah. But that's real. And I hate to say that as a defense.
No, but I mean, see, that's something like I don't understand because it doesn't take me a lot to need to recharge my social battery because I'm just an extroverted person. For someone like Dustin, like he needs that time to recharge. And for me, when I was just constantly go while he was gone, I couldn't understand why when he came back, we couldn't just go.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that we overlook is like we're just excited about coming home and we just like, hey, I'm coming home. I can't wait to see you and do these cool family fun things, but we just don't get into the nitty gritty of talking to our spouses about how we can actually reintegrate. And I think that's the hard part. And there's no way to, there's
no good answer.
There's not, and no two people are the same. No two situations are the same. So, ooh, perfect time. Yep, 10 minutes. Okay, on to the next question.
Oh, it's a good one. Let me read it.
Okay.
Yes. This is why Jenna married me. Healthcare systems for military families.
TRICARE and BAH.
TRICARE.
1, 2, 3, go.
Dem bennies.
Dem bennies. Oh, God. I don't even know where to start with the healthcare system for military families. You know,
each family member has their own different experience. So you have something different as a spouse. Eric's had something different being the service member. We have something different for our oldest as well. So, I mean, plus, like, you would love to think that you go to one naval hospital and they're all going to be the same.
But that's so far from it.
Exactly.
And I think that's what's so frustrating because I've had some really, really amazing naval doctors and I've had some really, really shitty naval doctors. I mean, to the point where, like, with my B12 stuff, I literally had to tell one of my naval doctors, like, this is how much I'm supposed to inject. This is how often I'm supposed to inject it. Like, can you just write me the script? And it's like, I get it. You know, they're healthcare providers. They see a lot of people and they, you know, have a lot of stuff that they have to learn. But it just, I think, sucks for spouses who feel like they're bound to the naval system.
And, like, one of the big things that I didn't understand with our first duty station was in Okinawa. We went over there pregnant with our oldest. And it was just a common question whenever I would call to say, hey, I'd like to get my daughter seen. There's something going on. Right away, before they ask what's going on, is this your first child? Are you a first-time parent? And I'm like, what the hell does that have anything to do with it?
Wow, really?
But, exactly. But when we go to California, and after my second daughter, like before they ask for my name and credentials, they never asked, is this your first child? Are you a first-time parent? It was like specifically an Okinawa thing. And it drove me crazy.
Yeah. Well, and there's a story to go with that. Zoe was like
just over a year old. And she was wildly sick. And I think part of it was she had some really bad allergies in Okinawa. And but you can't do anything for
a 1-year-old,
younger than a year-old,
Yeah, and so she was wildly sick. And, we noticed the fever and all that stuff. We tried treating the symptoms. I had to go TAD to Iwo Jima.
And before that, we already brought her in, and they did an X-ray on her, checked all her vitals, and they said if she still has a fever with for 3 more days, 2 more days, or whatever, then bring her back in.
And so I go TAD, come back
on that day that we would have had to bring her in,
and I see her, and she is way different than I left her, and it was like noticeably.
You could see her ribs.
It
and
was
like,
so bad. My little girl was dying at this point.
I'm sitting there like barely even like seeing the drastic change because I'm just up with. I was like up with her for like all 2-3 days straight with her, and so he goes and he's like, "We got to take her in.
Shut it down. We're going right now." And
we take her in. They just kind of like, "Oh, are you a first time parent?" Like with him there, and
It was at the new Naval Hospital in Okinawa, and they're like all chipper and whatever. And
you're like, my kid is sick.
It was still the old hospital.
Oh, because they transferred it.
Yeah, it was still the old hospital, and so
that's right.
the doctor just like does her thing. Oh well, you know, everything looks okay. It's like, well, you said to bring her in with her fever like this, so this is what we're doing. And so they go and bring her in for another chest X-ray, and sure enough, it's pneumonia. And it was full blown pneumonia. And they go back and look at the first X-ray, and you can like see a little speck. And so my first instinct was, if they weren't so, quote, are you a first-time parent with mindset, would they have looked at that X-ray differently? Because honestly, and I say, like, thank God he went TAD, because I
would have just suffered through it. That's your nature, too.
Yeah, because, like, this is what you said to do.
Right.
So...
No, and what made matters worse for me, and I was a corporal at the time, is the doctor comes in to review the chest X-ray. And he's like, oh, it's a good thing you brought her in when you did, because any longer she'd be dead.
Which is like, if we listened to you guys, she wouldn't be here.
You said what? Like, sir, are you fucking kidding me? Like, excuse my language. He's a corporal to a commander, of course. And he's like, hey, man, I'm really sorry. Okay, that was really insensitive of me and whatever and all that stuff. And like, yeah, we're here because it's your fault.
But then here, the first doctor that saw us originally, like, comes in, like, groveling and whatnot. Yeah, I'm like, you are an asshole to us. Yeah, like, why did our stuff not mean anything different? Because I was a, quote, first-time parent. Oh, yeah, teething could be a fever. Anything could cause a fever. But it doesn't matter. Like, if you looked at the X-ray like you should with a fine-tooth comb, one, you're paying the money for it, so why don't you look at it? Well, we're not, but, you know, the hospital is. Again, if you're putting the script in for one, why don't you go through it fully?
Right. Like, go actually take the time and do it.
Yeah.
So, and that's what a lot of military spouses, I think that's a lot of what their experiences are like. Just, I mean, crap like that. And it sucks. And I hate it. And everybody, you know, is, oh, well, go TRICARE Select. You don't have to, or Standard or whatever it is now. You don't have to go through all of that, which I did. I will say I switched. So I... Starting January 1.
We'll see how it goes.
We'll see how it goes. We will do an updated episode about that because I don't know.
But I just wonder if, like, because of the healthcare system, if we have to be our own advocates, like, to the extreme.
Yeah.
There's a spouse that I follow that I've known her since high school that has, what is it, PCOS. And I see her posts and stuff like that. And she's done.
Yep, don't know what PCOS is.
It's some sort of like a
polycystic ovarian syndrome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And
got you.
She's done so many different things to get her diagnosis until she finally did, and like extreme things. Like, I'm shocked to see like this is the healthcare system that people, quote unquote, Dustin, get married for.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Like, they think it's so like glamorous and whatnot.
Right, but it's not.
I wonder, like being in the civilian spectrum, like would we have to advocate for ourselves so much? Would we ever be asked, "Are you a first-time parent?"
Right.
Calling the pediatrician.
Right.
You know?
And what does it matter? Like, even if you are a first-time parent, even if you're a fifth-time parent, what does it matter?
Right. And then you're dealing with your own kind of...
I know.
Like a stigma.
Yes.
So...
I think about...
Man, it's bad for us also because we deal with enlisted medical personnel who are, I mean, let's be honest. Not,
enlisted.
Yeah, enlisted. Thank you.
Yeah.
And then typically they have to go through a series of questions, a litany of questions in order to like try and eliminate things or whatever, but ultimately you're still going to have to interface with the officer. Also, commands are different and they have different priorities as far as medical care goes.
Yep.
For me, I'm at the depot and recruits take priority.
Yeah.
You know, and so here I am, permanent personnel with 2 years of extreme back pain to the point where I can get done with a ceremony and I can't bend over and untie my shoes because my back is in so much pain. But when I go in, literally the officer is like, well, what do you want me to do? And it's like, I'm sorry. I'm
Your
here.
job?
Yeah, right? Your job.
I'm sorry, I'm here for help, and I need whatever you can
See,
do.
and that, sorry to interrupt, but that really pisses me off because that's that stigma.
Right.
Of, well, what do you want me to do? Like, just deal with it. Tough it out. Just deal with it. And it drives me nuts.
No, and so it took me another 8 months to finally get a diagnosis, and it was only after being advised you need to demand a diagnosis because you're seeking treatment for something that you don't know what it is. And it's like, that makes no actual sense, when you sit and talk about it that way.
It's like you had to know to ask that, where it's why do you have to ask for a diagnosis if you're going in there for something?
So to all the listeners out there, if you have a medical problem, please don't leave with a prescription and a physical therapy regimen. Ask for what your diagnosis is and do not stop until that happens.
I think that's a great piece of advice because we all know the military is big on, here's the Motrin, change your socks.
Oh my God. literally happened to me. So.
And
with a broken back. So.
Yeah, it just, I don't know. I have so many things to say about it because I think our healthcare for both spouses and active duty is just shit, period. I think it could be so much better, and I don't think
I think just like the recourse for it too, like what's malpractice in the military?
Right.
Well, I think, wasn't there a law passed recently?
There is.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go against y'all's grain here, and y'all are going to hate me.
Send it.
But there is, to put some positivity in here, there is some good things to having TRICARE and military insurance. Like, for instance, you get to have a child. How much money do you pay out of pocket to have a child?
Absolutely. Sure.
Absolutely nothing. Like, there are some benefits here, and there is some positivity. Yes. Do we not pay much? Absolutely. But some of these awesome insurances in the civilian world, they pay a lot of money and they have really good insurance. So I'm not saying you pay what you get for some of it, yes, but like there is some positive to having TRICARE and having those good things. Like, for instance, like custom orthotics that I get pretty much every year, every other year. It's free, and like I seen the bill and it's like $2,000 for the orthotics I last got. Like, I can't complain. Like, there is some bad stuff. Like, don't get me wrong. But
I hate to interrupt you, but you can complain, and you should complain when
there
are problems.
And I do, but I just want to shed some positivity on our insurance. So, there are some good things out there.
Yeah, I mean, there definitely are benefits, but I said, it's one of those things like, okay, we don't pay per se for anything, but the con to that is the type of healthcare that we get.
Makes you wonder, like, if the doctors knew that we were paying a hefty copay or deductible,
would
they
it be
treating
different?
it differently?
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, well, we're just going to bill whatever.
Yeah.
A friend of mine got brain surgery, and the first surgery was wrong and left him permanently crippled. And then the second one
took out the wrong part.
Took out literally the wrong part of the brain through Navy medicine.
Yeah.
And he couldn't sue. So,
So you get compensated with, X amount of time retirement based off of your stuff. But still, like, if that was in the civilian spectrum, that doctor would have been fired.
Oh, yeah, malpractice for
He'd
sure.
go bankrupt and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So what does this additional retirement stuff really mean?
Right.
So
true, but you also have people that have those same surgeries and have no issues.
Sure,
so
yeah, absolutely.
Like I said, I'm playing devil's advocate here because I see both sides of it.
On it.
But there is a positivity side to it. Like, we can have those bad instances, but we can still have good outcomes.
I mean, I've been very fortunate. I've had to have a ton of surgeries in the time that we've been married, and I haven't paid a single dime for any of them. So in that aspect, I'm absolutely very fortunate. But at the same time, I have to push for a lot of the stuff that I need.
Yeah, we do. I mean, you're going to have bad service, you're going to have good service. It's never going to be consistent. It's really not.
That's true.
So our takeaway is, 1, ask for a diagnosis if you don't have a diagnosis.
Shannon's like, let me just recap.
And 2, be your own advocate.
Yeah. Yes.
Keep that up because only you know what's going on. And if you can't advocate for yourself, how can you accurately ask a doctor to do the same for you?
Yep.
Bingo.
Yeah, you have to advocate.
Thank you for putting a bow on that.
Next one, because we went over our time.
Okay.
That was good.
That was good.
Worth it.
All right. Next one is spouse integrations at the unit level.
Ooh, are you integrated, Jennifer?
Man, these are good.
Do you hang out with the other wives in your spouse's unit?
We usually do a monthly get together, I will say.
Do you want to go downtown and have some tea with the other spouses?
But I will say it wasn't until just recently that started, and that this is the first time that I've ever had any type of integration within a spouse or like within my husband's unit.
Like the other spouses.
Right.
You've been married 10 years?
Yep.
Yeah, and I'm the opposite, actually. So all the other units that we've been to, I mean, again, like, Oki was like a complete different world, because you literally had nobody else. You couldn't drive to go and see family or fly conveniently to see family or friends in the country. So we relied on each other like super dependently. Pendleton, we were blessed to have one of the other Marines in his unit live right next door to us.
Oh,
and
man.
me and his wife, we just
that's
vibed.
awesome.
It was fantastic.
We ran a racket, freaking block
Oh
parties.
yeah, that corner in that neighborhood, like, oh, there they go again.
And he's
then,
Mexican,
like-
so it was like...
And then here I got close to, honestly, like one other spouse, because we just kind of vibe. We had the same personality and whatnot. And then she moved, and I just kind of, I started my own business, so I was kind of doing my own thing for that.
Right.
No.
But when I look back on it, the differences between those two other bases and here is there's so many first timers here.
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily think like age is anything of a difference.
Yeah.
What am I, 32?
Oh,
Whatever. I'm just
Allegedly.
31, whatever, and you've got
the
a lot
record
of
shows
like
she is 31.
20-year-olds, and so I'm like, I remember myself at 20, like thought I had the world. I'm like, no, I did not.
Yeah.
Know what I was talking about.
Absolutely.
And so I see like there's a whole bunch of young Marines, this being their first duty station. They haven't seen the world. Climate was challenging over here for them, and like that camaraderie between the spouses wasn't as strong, because I know we talked a little bit about it in the last podcast, but like being in the band field is completely different than other things, in the sense that you guys can last minute go on TAD trips. You have to
Listen, that
train,
can happen.
like,
that happens everywhere.
but I'm just saying, like, you went TAD how many times in Oki and Pendleton? Like last minute, I had to deal with like daycare stuff like that. Where
like
I don't, where you
it.
guys are. The joke is Groundhog's Day. Every Friday's a
Right.
graduation, so they're on a schedule.
Yeah.
So they don't know what it's really like, and the spouses are the same way. It's almost like there's an entitlement to it.
Yeah.
And I mean that with the most respect, in case any of them listen. And it's just you've got it really good here, but it's not the real way things go. And I don't want to like.
I'll interrupt. So I also want to say, though, I think everyone views the problem, like it ties back to what we talked about. Everyone views their problem as one of the bigger problems they've ever seen.
Right. Yeah.
So it's not fair to say, hey, you got it easy, which was the truth of it. Let the record show it's easy at Paris Island Rain Band. Just kidding, it's not. But yeah, now everyone sees it like, man, I never see my spouse and all that stuff, and like they're so busy and they work 06:30 to 18:30 every day, and this is horseshit and whatever. And that might be true, but the truth of it is, you're going to feel that way no matter what.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for like me, it's just really hard to relate to the other spouses in this unit because they're younger and they're not as.
They're Zennials. Next question. I'm going to pencil this one in.
Experience has something to do with it.
Yeah. But
like, I can't relate to them because, I don't know. I feel like also like the area that we live in too is very, well, the spouses pages are, stereotypical spouse page drama.
Active.
So, there's a lot of that, and I'm not about that life.
Yeah.
And, if I see people that are all gossipy and in the room, I'm like,
that's
been there, done that, and it's just not my cup of tea.
Yeah.
You have to be careful about who you let in, even in the spouse unit, because you are going to be running into each other more often than you think so.
It can impact your spouse's career.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the big thing.
If you do it incorrectly or inappropriately.
A lot of individuals don't really know the repercussions that your spouse is going to have based off of your actions. And I know a lot of it is like, you see stuff like, get his chain of command involved and, that stuff will stop. Or, you're going to get your husband in trouble, your spouse in trouble. And who knows if that's just fear-mongering. But at the same time, like...
Also, please consider before you post anything to social media as a spouse... consult your active duty spouse.
Yes.
It matters, and we have had to burn for it, so.
Yes. Parents, too. If you're parents, tell mom and dad. We're not speaking from, like, our parents, but, parents in the unit, be careful what you post about your kids, because they're command snoops.
Yeah.
Not on purpose.
Not on purpose. It's just
It's
I like
like an
congruence.
accidental.
I think congruence are a good thing.
What do you mean?
When they write, when parents or other people write
Oh,
congressmen,
yes.
and
Yeah.
it comes down.
That's right.
yeah.
It's
Yeah.
awesome.
Oh, man.
I'm just kidding.
It's more like,
Just kidding.
Pure
it's more
sarcasm.
like the best ones are like, you know, the parents are posting, well, back in my day, things
Yeah.
were like
God.
this, and I can't believe you're doing things this way. Like, you should know better as this person in the job. And it's just like, all right, well, yeah, let's just...
Back to the original question of spouse integration at the unit level. It comes back to experiences may vary at every single unit, because we've had good units where spouse integration has been awesome, and it starts, I will say, it starts at the top and works its way down. I've also had different units where, hey, my husband is a staff sergeant, or my husband is the first sergeant.
Oh,
you know, and I'm higher ranking than you. Like, no, there's no rank structure when it comes to spouses. Like,
Right.
What?
If-
There's not?
No.
if the CO's
Damn it.
wife,
Clear my schedule.
We're
Yeah.
civilians.
Damn it.
if
I'm
the
done with
CO's
this.
wife wants to hang out with so and so, like, that's okay for them to go do.
Yeah.
It really is.
Well,
And,
some,
like,
but some like
They use it as a
officer
tool.
wives
They use
use
it
it
as
as like, oh well, you know, I can't do this because you're enlisted. I have to invite every single person around. I can't
Right.
have favorites.
Yeah.
and that's where it promotes to integration at the spouse integration at the unit level. Like, it comes down to people just having open of mind and not having rank or other things associated or entitlement associated
Unit
to it.
functions.
It's just being a normal, common person.
When is the last time we had a unit function here?
Last week.
Like, no, but like,
He said last week.
I'm thinking of like the 2 years that we've been here. There's maybe been like 2 unit functions where it hasn't been just staff.
Let the record show that we're filming this current episode during the pandemic when
Well, no, I
unit
get it.
functions are
I
ill-advised.
get it. But I'm thinking like the last 2 years, like there might have been only like 2 unit functions, that it wasn't just a staff thing.
4th of July and Christmas every year, yeah. Sure.
So, but the other units where the camaraderie between the spouses was like super tight, there were several unit functions.
And there were also leaders in the spouse community that would organize things.
Yeah, I think it comes back to spouses being proactive in it as well, not just if their husband's a senior leader or not. Like, if they're active in getting the spouses together, like, it's going to be a lot better. But
that helps with like
people
new
just
people,
think
though.
people just think that other people are going to do it.
Right.
And, like, you can't just be expected. Like, if you want something to do with the spouse community, like, in your unit, like, you got to go out and you got to do it.
Yeah, when we first moved out here, I had a whole bunch of spouses over just to get to know everybody, because that's what I was used to. And there was some animosity about that. That here I come in, a brand new spouse, I got like 8 people together, and this other individual would try to do stuff, but it would be a disaster for a couple of different reasons.
Personality based.
So here I'm coming in, and you know there's jealousy involved. I'm like, why are you jealous? Like,
Right.
I'm just trying to get to know everybody.
You're invited
Get
too.
this unit thing together,
Right.
Because there's a need for it. And I mean, I know for like us, there's definitely still a need.
Yeah.
And I know that some of the other spouses, I think it's just like an age thing. Like they're like, I'm not going to be with them because they're old
yeah.
people. I'm like, I don't care being an old person.
I know. You're an old person the other day.
spouses, aren't we?
But we need you to mentor the younger. Because,
Well, you're literally doing that with a podcast, so.
Yeah, that's true.
you're helping.
That's true.
Yeah.
You got to mentor the young.
But yeah,
and influence the old.
We had a spouse event in October, and it was mostly 30s and up. And we had asked one of the girls who was friends with a lot of the younger girls why they didn't come. And she was like, I think she said something about there being like another party or something. And I was like, oh God, it's because we're the old people.
Oh gosh.
Also,
That was fun.
I'd be interested to hear about a male spouse's vantage point and joining the wives club. If
We
you
should
will.
have
Heck yeah.
We should.
We need to find one and bring them on the
Actually-
What's
podcast.
his, I interviewed a male spouse.
You did, yeah. And
And
he's active.
very active in the community. Very active.
Nice.
He's the diamond in the rough.
He is. He is.
I'd like to hear some more male spouse integration. Like, some of their thoughts.
It'd be overwhelming, though.
Like,
I feel like it'd be overwhelming.
like the Gomez's, like being a military spouse.
But
I mean, even
Neither
though he's
of-
active duty, I'm
well,
just
yeah,
saying,
that's true.
active duty or not,
Oh,
having a
active
male's
duty, active
perspective,
duty?
Yeah.
Nice.
having an active duty perspective as a spouse, whether they're, they're civilian or they're active duty. I think it'd be really cool.
Yeah.
That's
I agree.
Send your active duty spouse. Contact Jenna at confessions
Yep.
of a spouse at
at gmail.com.
All right.
All right, next topic. Da 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 da.
Round 4.
Ooh.
Fight.
Do you think your children suffer from this lifestyle? Yep.
Yes.
Especially now.
Yeah. This is really interesting that this came up because there was a recent event that happened that I'm not going to go into too much detail publicly. But anyway, there was a conversation that happened between me and somebody else, and the way I took the conversation was very negative, and almost as if she had a disadvantage because she moves around all the time, and she's not in one place all the time, and she's not steadily...
This is an adult you're talking to. Okay.
But wait,
Yeah.
who has the disadvantage? Ella?
Ella.
Oh,
Yeah. Because the conversation was regarding Ella, and just like I said, the comment that was made I took very negatively, and almost in the sense that the comment was negative because of the fact that she has the lifestyle that she has, where she's not in a set location for a super extended period of time.
Yeah.
And it really, like, that bothers me to think about things like that, because I think about school and having to move every 3 years. Like, one side of me thinks that it's awesome because she gets to explore so much. The other side of me thinks that it sucks because she doesn't get to, those friends that she's made for the last 3 years, she has to uproot them and make new friends.
Right.
I wish I had this growing up.
Me too.
I was distant from my family.
Really?
Selfishly, I think, also. But if I had been forced to change my life every 3 years, I probably wouldn't have ended up so messed up.
You're not messed up.
I'm better now.
You've got some good qualities.
I'm mostly better now. I wish I had to rely on my family
Really?
more. And maybe that's just my viewpoint, as in, like, our children are so close. And, like, so close to us.
Yeah.
Which I didn't necessarily have. Now, I'm not saying that I don't love my mom who raised me.
Right.
But because again, I'm very thankful for all that. But I wish I had been forced some of the hardship a little earlier. And I don't know. Maybe that's just overly optimistic looking at it.
And I think it's also just kind of, again, like parenting style. Like, we talked a little bit about our careers having to change. And I touched on the fact that it's been challenging me to get creative and to phrase things a little bit differently when I'm talking to people. That I know, like with Zoe, our oldest, she's 8. She's thriving. She's so adaptable to change.
Yeah.
I like last year they're even like, when are we moving again? Like, it's almost like they were ready for it. So I know there's several kids out there that are like, oh, when are we going to move? Like, I'm excited for the adventure,
Right.
But now coming up on Eric having to move across country, it's like every single day they're like, when does Daddy leave? When does Daddy leave? And for me, that's overwhelming because we never had that.
Right.
We've never had to, like, prepare for a long deployment. It's just been like, oh, Dad's going to be gone for, like, a week and he'll come back, But, like, this one's like, Dad's going to be gone. We're going to see him when we see him.
Yeah. Thank God for technology.
I know. So we've got our plans and stuff like that. So I know that this is definitely going to be super hard for them. But when we phrase it to them about why Mom and Dad made this decision, it's like, hey, honey, do you want to be stuck in a house with me all day, every day? Because we moved to a state that's not doing in-person schooling. Yeah. They're like, no. I'm like, yeah.
Okay.
Neither, kids. I love you, but not that much. So why don't we just hang out here? And you guys have your friends still. You've got your school. Yeah. And honestly, with the pandemic, it's just one less thing to worry about.
I'm hungry.
Hi, Hungry.
Nice to meet you, Hungry.
So it'll be interesting for us to see that new side of the girls.
Yeah.
After it happens.
You got anything?
What's your thoughts? Because I know you have thoughts on it.
I think it's good and bad. Like, it's twofold. Like, and I think the kids don't realize it until they get older in life. And like some of the things that we do, they're super thankful for. And some of the things, like, there might be a little resentment, but like you talk to a lot of grown-ups now that are military, or that were military brats growing up, and they moved around a lot. Like, they're super thankful and like they're super like outgoing people, like supportive of. I mean, the ones I've ran into, like, super awesome, like, outgoing, here to help you out, like, understand the change, they embrace it, like, it makes them very unique people, whereas me growing up in a small town, like, I kind of hated it, I didn't move around. Like the second time I flew on an airplane was to boot camp. So living more of a shelter life, whereas like they're more
go with the flow,
more diverse, and like they get to see so much more things and do more things.
Worldly people. So travel expands the mind, and they do it in their formative years. You know, I've been to 17 countries, and I'm not saying that as a brag. What I'm saying is like I feel like I understand what it is to be a human better now.
Right.
And,
absolutely.
And
they get to do that as children, and so that, but they're not going to understand it, like you said, for a long time.
They don't.
I had that conversation with my mom, actually. You know, I'm thankful for the fact that Ella is growing up in the way that she is, in the lifestyle that she is, because I feel like I didn't really know what life was or who I was until I left. And I think me leaving my hometown was the best thing that I could have ever done.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
And never going back.
Yeah, I mean, same. Like, we've said that already. And, you know, I think everybody's finally come to terms with the fact that we're not going to go back. Maybe, I don't know. But I'm thankful that Ella has gotten to go all these places and meet all these people. And, you know, she's so diverse. You know, when we were in California, there was such a diverse culture out there that she got to learn so much about different cultures and people and things that, I mean, I didn't even know. She would come home and be like, Mom, did you know? And I'm like, no. You know, so I'm learning just as much as she is.
I mean, especially with like how the world is today with like culture and sensitive topics and stuff like that.
Divisiveness.
You know, we surround ourselves with, you know, our own tiny little planet of just uniqueness. Every individual has their own like unique quality that we can teach them firsthand. Hey, this is why we don't say stuff, or this is why we talk to people in this manner with like respect and whatnot. So it's like we're blessed that we're teaching them life skills that they probably wouldn't have had elsewhere.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Especially, I don't know what the statistic is. A large amount of people never leave greater than 100 miles from where they're born and stuff like that. You ever heard of that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so, but meanwhile, we have our children who will, by the time they're adults, lived in a dozen places.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, and going from bustling Oceanside, California, where, you know, thousands of people have these giant motorcycles and trucks driving by all hours of the day, coming out to Beaufort, and a 6-year-old sits there and is like, wow, it's so quiet here.
Yeah.
And so they get to experience that sort of existential, like, calm.
Yeah.
And at such a young age that even I was 30 when I got here, and it's like, yeah, it is so quiet.
I can hear my thoughts again.
Right, exactly. Exactly. Ella's like, oh my gosh, Mom, we don't have to sit in traffic. I'm like, I know.
Yes.
And then when there is traffic, she's like, oh, what is deal? Oh no. I'm like, I know. You get used to not having to sit in traffic. And I mean, I think it's great for our kids.
Yeah, I think the other thing I want to bring up is at the same time, like, I think I may suffer, like, I think my kid suffers, but she really doesn't,
right,
because I'm making her get up and move away from her friends. Like, don't get me wrong, like, you grow up, like, you leave high school, like, you're not going to have those same friends throughout your whole life. Like, I can name, like, the people I still talk to, and am good friends with on, like, 3 fingers.
Yeah.
That I still talk to and have that good relationship with, but, like, that's something that she may or may not have because she hasn't lived with them for the last 18 years growing up.
Right.
And I think that's me as a parent, like, it does pull at my heartstrings having to, like, hey, girl, like, listen up, like, we got to move, like, you're going to have to make new friends again.
Yeah.
And, like, seeing her go through that part, like, that does stink as a parent, but at the same time, like, I don't know if she suffers. Like, yeah, she'll bring it up, like, hey, I do miss these people, but, like, that's where she's made pen pals with some friends, and, like, they've still communicated via snail mail and mail letters to people.
I think that's where it kind of comes onto the parents, too. Like, I love seeing those videos of, like, military kids, you know, running into each other at the airport and seeing each other for the first time.
Yeah.
Like, I still keep in touch with our very first, like, close best friend for Zoe. You know, and I'm just like, when we were vacationing in Virginia last year, I'm like, hey, you're there. You're in America again.
Right.
Let's hang out at the park. And it was...
Yeah.
It was great.
Oh, yeah, Zoe's first crush. Yeah, that was another one. We still keep in contact
Oh,
with.
yeah, we still do. Mr. Logan!
I love it. All right, last topic for tonight. Oh, this is more for you guys. Discuss the prospects of living abroad. So
Yep, I have not lived abroad.
I was just
lived
going to say,
abroad for like 6 to 9 months at a time.
For the record, Dustin and I have never lived outside of the United States. Most of his career has been spent on the West Coast. This is actually the first time that we've ever been on the East Coast even. So we can't really talk about this topic very much. However, I did tell him. He, at one point, had orders to Germany, and then...
Oh, wow. What happened? How do you pass up Germany?
So, he actually
it's a
didn't...
Joint Command. It's Germany.
I know.
Also, I don't know if you know this, it's Germany. Like,
yeah, so he didn't pass it up.
bless.
He was, like, in zone or in the below zone or whatever for promotion, and they knew he was going to get promoted when he was over there. And once he got promoted, they weren't going to have a spot for him, so they were going to have to send him back. And they said it was... So they pulled the plug, and then we went from Naval Base San Diego to Camp Pendleton.
Classic. Big move.
Huge.
Doing big moves around here.
Yep.
For the second time to Camp Pendleton.
We can answer questions then from you guys. What would be questions?
I don't know.
I know.
What are the prospects of living abroad?
When we went to Okinawa, it was in end of 2011. It was interesting to get over there because they kept delaying stuff. Our orders kept getting pushed back. I found out I was pregnant with Zoe.
Which made it complicated.
So when I'm saying I found out I was pregnant with Zoe, that means like we were told we're going to be leaving in July.
June.
In June?
Yeah.
Okay,
that was 10
so
years ago.
June... We go back home to Arizona to visit our family before we leave. We come back and they're like, "Oh yeah, so you're still not leaving." So we already left our apartment that we were living in. All of our stuff was packed up. Like that's how serious they were. All of our stuff was already on a boat going to Japan.
Our stuff beat us there.
We lived.
Wow.
We lived in the hotel my entire first trimester. It was miserable. He literally pulled out the suitcase we used yesterday, and that smell still makes me gag to this day.
It's not a bad smell. It's just a familiar smell.
It's just not. I don't like that familiar smell. It brings back memories. And I was blessed with morning sickness all day, every day, my first trimester. So
can I wrap it up real quick? There's an overseas screening checklist that occurs, and you can't really diminish it. It's very important, and there's a lot.
We had to do it twice.
We had to do it twice because a little human came into the mix there.
Dang you guys!
Yeah.
But when we got orders to Oki, we were super excited, and then there was also that stigma at that time. They called it Oki Traz.
Yeah, which again I think is a misnomer. You've been to Oki on UDP at all?
No.
Ibukuni?
No.
Dead
to me.
No to everything.
Anyways, no, it's a misnomer. I think that many young folk who just want to drive and go on a road trip and go do whatever bullshit. I'm so sorry, I'm getting fired up. I go do whatever. They just they can't because it's a 60-mile long island, and they don't know how to make a good time for themselves other than being around these big city type
and
things.
looking back on it, a lot of the people that did call it Ogiatraz or didn't like it just stayed on installations. They didn't go out and explore, or they did just the traditional touristy stuff. They didn't go out there and experience the culture.
Right.
I think another part of it is we were young when we went. We were 22, 21, almost 22 when we got there. We discovered what we liked out there.
Right.
There was just a wild selection of food, perfected, of course, because they're Japanese. And then I went to of all the countries I've been to, I think 12 of them were from that duty station alone, and it's just that's a unique experience that no one else will be able to offer. And then it's cheap for families to fly if you want to go to those places too.
I did fly Spatze one time with Zoe.
Well, yeah, there's that, but also if you're flying commercial, you can get to China for $100.
Yeah, we went to mainland for $100
which is just wild. And so, again, I think it's an opportunity that no one should pass up. If you're, I'm going to be away from my family for the first time. Guess what? Lean into it.
Right. For us, that was a worry. My mom's a nurse. Here I'm pregnant with my first child. And I'm moving to a place that's an 18-hour time zone difference where I only had 2 times of the day. 13?
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
I thought it was... Okay, whatever. It was an excessive time zone difference. Right. And I remember there was only 2 times in the day that I could have a decent conversation with her. And only I can call because, they couldn't call a Japanese phone number. 080.
I don't think that's
area
what it is.
code. It was 080 is the area, the 3.
Okay,
anyways. The 7-digit number was a 10-digit number.
That was messed up.
So, anyways, so I was I put up a wall. Definitely, I put up a wall, and it took a little bit to break it down. And I was really thankful that, in the end, it was just me and Eric. That we weren't surrounded by people trying to tell us how to parent.
Right. Yeah.
That we found our parenting style.
Right.
We weren't influenced by our parents. We weren't influenced by any of our other friends who had children.
Right.
That we got to figure out our own stuff kind of like in privacy because,
it was only you
guys. Facebook back then too was like...
in the infancy.
Yeah. It was MySpace.
Just after.
8 top friends.
Yeah, it was still pretty... Facebook was still pretty new. Social media was still pretty new. Like, Skype was popular, but, like, still, like, the connections were terrible.
Also, like, it was just you, me, and Zoe, and all of Zoe's uncles.
Oh, God.
You know what I'm saying? Like, because people couldn't go home to their families often, they would come to our house because we'd open our doors all the time.
We had people over like every weekend, and our couch had somebody on there.
Literally, the first person other than us to hold Zoe was Bob. You know, a Marine that we worked with, and you know, that's special. It sort of means a lot to me. You know, like which you won't get at a place like Pendleton because at Pendleton, 1630 Liberty hits, everyone's gone.
Yeah,
you know, a little bit. It's a little bit like that here because there's not a whole lot to do in Beaufort,
right?
But not quite the same level.
That's like going overseas is really a place that you can go and find yourself, however cliche that may be. But like when you're so far removed from typical American things, and you have to deal with the language barrier, you know, like we spoke enough Japanese to be polite, and that was super like respected out there. Yeah. I mean, we've got funny stories about Zoe coming home from school saying Japanese words. We're like, what the heck is going on here?
Zoe went to a Japanese daycare. It was so good.
Yeah.
And they're not afraid of...
that is awesome.
They're not afraid of punishing the children.
Oh, man, we found out about timeout. Because we see these kids with their hands on the wall.
Just
and
crying
I'm like,
their asses off.
I'm like, Sensei, what's going on over there? They're like, oh, they're in timeout. And I'm like, wait a second. Zoe's old enough for timeout? Like, game's over.
It was so good.
And so what was nice, too, is that we would put her in timeout like they do at school. So she knew exactly what it was. It was consistent, you know?
That's awesome.
And that was a great day for our house.
No, really.
Yeah.
No, but again, I think, there's a lot to say for the cliche, go discover yourself. Back to the original topic, you travel the world, you really learn so much more. Yeah. And you take for granted. I remember flying back for the final flight, being like, I just want to go on a road trip. I don't even care where we go. I want to drive for like 8 hours. I don't even care where it's to.
I think instead of taking the expressway, I think was I talking to you about speeding?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So like the fastest really you go in Oki is 80 kilometers. And it's 45 miles.
Don't do math in public. It's about 45
It's about 45 miles. So I remember like coming back home my first time.
And
I'm driving 45 miles. Like I am the old lady in the right-hand lane. Like, oh my God, why are these people going so fast? Like the freeway terrified me.
Driving from the airport to Pendleton in a big old rental van. Just like, oh my God. I'm gonna die.
But like, so on the flip side too, because of it being overseas, everything could turn out to be an international incident.
Yeah, that's true.
So those who are over in Oki that get it, you get some stupid person doing some sort of activity off base that they shouldn't be doing.
Crossing the crosswalk and get hit by someone in their van.
You get somebody out like doing something stupid that everybody has to stay on base. There's a curfew, no drinking or anything like that. But us as dependents, being like 9 months pregnant, can go and buy however much alcohol they want at the 7-day for everybody over at the house having a party. Or we are able to experience stuff as spouses a lot differently than the active duty because we're not having to uphold the curfew or any other restrictions. Great, you want to do it with respect and whatnot, but
say all that to say,
you gotta also like be careful like what you're doing off base because everybody's gonna look at you. I remember one time I was dropping somebody off at Kadena. We lived on Foster, and it was already past a curfew time, and I'm the only Yankee plate out there. And Yankee plate, like as an American in your car, you have a Y plate, Y for Yankee, and everybody else had their.
I don't know if that's
Japanese
what it's for,
places.
but that's what it's called.
That's what it's called, our Yankee plate, and I was like scared shitless. I'm like, I'm the only person out here on curfew. Like, let me just make sure I'm following all the rules, driving appropriately. So you have to be very mindful of what you're doing and everything respectfully because you have a target on your back, I guess you could say, when you're going out in town.
Yeah, I've heard that.
So as long as you're not being dumb, you're going to have a great time.
Okay, a couple quick points. It's worth it serving overseas. The point of serving in the military is service overseas, so don't be afraid of it. And your family will benefit from it. Also, Germany is the best overseas post, so go ahead and go do that if you get a chance.
Dustin!
Korea.
Well, I will say we have good friends that are over there right now, and they're exploring the world, and they're having a complete blast.
It is so fun to, it's so fun to
see
watch
their
them
story
on Facebook and stuff. It's just, And then I say, oh, that could have been us.
Korea has the best fried chicken. It's incredible.
Oh, and eat all the Kit Kats you can in Japan while you see a new flavor and send them to Jenna. Ask her for her address.
Nice. There's that, and then, just don't shy away from it. You're going to really, again, sort of reinvent yourself after that. So, all right, I'm done.
I like it.
All great topics. Thank you, Shannon and Eric, and I guess Dustin, for being here with me today. Dustin kind of has to because he lives here. But anyway.
You're welcome for my service.
Thank you guys for being on the podcast.
Of course.
I'm sure we will have them back on again. And don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast listening platform.